In this video, I'll give you an introduction to Honeydew Day 1 Absence Reporting Service, and then show you the line manager's tools in our online portal, Engage. Honeydew Health provides a 24/7 absence reporting line, so that employees can call a dedicated number to report when they aren't able to come into work. Honeydew's call handlers record the absence details in a central database, and we send instant notifications to the nominated line managers by email. We can also send notifications by text if the manager has a work mobile. Employees should call the absence line to report their absence before their normal start time. They should also call the number with updates as often as your company absence policy states. We also require that absentees call us back to close their absence record. This last bit is important to bear in mind, because employees sometimes forget to report their return. When this happens, they remain listed as absent, which will skew your absence levels and can incorrectly trigger review meetings and other tasks. If one of your employees comes back to work and you haven't seen the return to work confirmation from Honeydew, please remind the employee to call and close their absence. The Honeydew Contact Centre is based in the UK, in Southend. When employees call us, they will speak to a real person. It is not an automated service or a press 1 for this and 2 for that. On average, 90% of our calls are answered within 20 seconds, and we monitor the call wait times really closely. The remaining calls are usually answered within a couple of minutes. Here's an example of what an absence alert looks like. At the top, you can see the reason for the alert. This could be new absence, updated absence, return to work confirmed, or reopened absence. The alert shows some details about the employee, and here you see a contact telephone number. We ask the callers to confirm what is the best number to contact them on every time they call us. This is not for us to use. Honeydew will never make outbound calls to employees, but for you as the line manager in case you need to get in touch with the absent employee for any reason. It's absolutely fine for a line manager to contact an absent employee, even if they have already reported their absence via the absence line. We handle the data collection for your company, but it is recommended that the employer maintains personal contact with the employees, especially if they're off for a longer time, like a week or more. We also ask the employee for the start date of the absence and when they're expecting to return to work. If the employee can't confidently estimate their return date, we will write some notes here instead. It could be that they're waiting for a doctor's appointment, for example, and we'll update the details after seeing their GP. You also see the reason for absence and any additional information the employee gives us in the notes section. Copies of these alerts can also be sent to additional coordinators, rostering clerks, or receptionists, in which case we would recommend leaving out the reason and notes. Now, let's take a look at the online absence management tools. To access the tools, open your web browser and go to engage.honeydew-health.com. All our email alerts have a link to the absence management portal, so if you forget the web address, you can always click on the links in the emails to log into Engage. If you don't have a login yet or you've forgotten your password, all you need to do to get started is to enter your work email address here in the not yet registered forgotten password field. An email will be sent to you with a link. Once you've got your login details, this is where you log in, here on the left. I'm logging into a dummy account to show you around. What you see first when logged in is the dashboard. This is an overview of your team, and it's also where you'll find shortcuts to most of the things you need to access in Engage. At the top, you'll see how many new absences have been reported today, and how many open records there are. Both of these links take you to the absence records section. Here, if you click on the name of the employee, you see their entire absence history, with any current open absences highlighted in green. You can view the details of any absence by clicking on View. Every time the employee calls us, we will make a new entry in this log. You can see the notes for every call, the fact that the call centre has made this entry and the time and date when the employee called us. If you add notes to the absence record, they will be added into the log with your name next to it. Up here at the top of the absence record, you can add files, you can add a comment, or you can log that you've received a sick note. Remember that the sick and fit notes are needed for payroll, so continue to process the originals in the way your HR or payroll team has instructed. Going back to the dashboard, here we show how many tasks are outstanding. This is probably the most common reason for logging into Engage, because you will receive reminders for these tasks. Let's start with the return to work interviews. A return to work interview is triggered every time an employee confirms that they're coming back to work. It's a 2-page form and follows standard best practice for back to work interview. The form is dynamic, so the next questions may change depending on your answers. The first section should prompt conversations about giving enough notice and updating the absence record regularly. We also ask you to check if the employee called to close the absence or report fit for duty. This is an important part of the process. If an employee doesn't close their absence, they will remain listed as absent and accumulate extra absence days. This will skew the company's absence level and also can incorrectly trigger review meetings and other tasks. Another question I want to highlight here is, was this an authorised absence? Sometimes employees report an absence, for example, due to a sick child or bereavement in the family. If the employee qualifies for authorised time off, for dependents, or for compassionate leave, it's important that you authorise the absence on the system. This means the absence won't count towards your policy triggers or absence level going forward. If the absentee qualifies for an authorised absence, select Yes here and choose the reason why the absence was authorised in the list that appears. Here we have time off for dependents and bereavement, which are probably the most common ones. You might have noticed that a lot of these relate to pregnancy. That's because an employer can't penalise the employee for taking time off for pregnancy-related illness. If this was a normal absence that doesn't qualify for authorised time off, then just click No and carry on by confirming that the correct reason for absence has been logged. The second page of the form asks questions about preventing future absence and reminds you to check if any adjustments are required at work. There's also space for comments from both the employee and the manager. Since this is an electronic form, a signature is not required. You just need to enter the initials of the employee and your own and save the form. It will be saved as a static PDF that you will not be able to change. You will see a message that it has been successfully saved, and there will be a link for you to download the file if you want to. The PDF is automatically stored on the employee record, and you can download a copy at any time if you need to. In most straightforward cases, it will not be necessary for you to print a copy. We only recommend printing this if you've discussed something specific like absence improvement targets and you'd like the employee to sign a form to make sure everybody agrees to what's been discussed. If you do get the form signed, you can scan the signed copy and upload it back into the absence record to keep everything stored in the same place. Another task that you will see is an absence review meeting. This task is split into two. First, you're asked to set a date for the meeting. Here on the form you can see why the meeting has been triggered. An absence review task is often created on the first day of absence, which means that you'll be reminded of this task even though the employee is still off sick. These tasks are created when the employee is still absent because in some cases, especially if the absence becomes a long-term case, you should have a review meeting with the absentee before they come back to work. This means you can also offer support and find out if there is anything the employer could do to help the employee recover and return to work. A review meeting should be arranged as soon as the employee is well enough to attend. In any case, it will take a little time to make the arrangements for a review meeting. Engaged task reminders will prompt you daily to schedule the meeting until a date has been confirmed. Once you enter a date, the reminders will stop until a couple of days before the meeting is due. The first step was set up to help managers avoid daily reminders for a meeting that is scheduled for a future date. It's fine to enter an approximate date here, as you will have the chance to change it later. When you set the meeting date, a new task is created and added to the list with the review meeting form. It's a very similar looking form. It has the reason for the trigger here, then the absence history of the employee, and when you scroll down, you find the sections where you add the notes from the meeting and the improvement targets you've agreed with the employee. Again, you need to enter manager and employee initials to save the form, and once it has been saved successfully, you'll be able to download the file. With absence review meetings, we recommend that you always print the PDF and get it signed, because it includes targets you've set. If you want to keep all your files in one place, you can scan the signed copy and add it to the absence record by clicking on Add Files on the absence record. Another task you might come across is Consider Occupational Health Referral. This is to prompt you to have a look at the absence history for this employee and determine whether there is a need for an OH referral. If you think that an OH professional could give you advice on this case, you should follow your company's normal referral process. This task is not automatically linked to any OH provider, it's just a reminder to consider the OH route when, for example, an employee has been absent for a longer time, or when they report an absence due to a stress-related reason or back pain, just to give a couple of examples. Finally, here is an outbound call task. These tasks are prompted to remind you it's important for a line manager to maintain personal contact with absent employees, even if they call Honeydew to report their absence. This is a very simple form where you just enter when you had the call and what discussion was had. There are other tools that you can also have access to, and if you'd like to find out more, take a look at our resource hub for more tutorial videos. It's also where you can find refresher videos on all the things covered in this induction. The resource hub should be your first port of call if you have a question about Engage. There's loads of useful info on here. I hope this tutorial has helped you get started with Engage.